the African Christian Democratic Party, the ACDP, is now calling on the private sector to play a bigger role when it comes to electricity generation. In fact, the party says it's unacceptable to have load shedding during the holidays when most companies are closed. For more on this, we're joined by ACDP MP Steve Swart to elaborate on this point even further. Steve, and you will you'll feel the pain of many South Africans, many people in the country this morning, as we continue to battle under load shedding, even during the festive season.
Sean, good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. And may I firstly just, on behalf of the ACDP, express our deepest condolences to all those that passed in that tragic gas explosion in Boksburg. Thank you for your coverage on that issue. Our thoughts and prayers are with those families, and we pray for a speedy recovery of all those that were injured as well in Boksburg. So thank you for your coverage on that issue. But as far as Eskom is concerned, you might recall that I was involved in the Eskom parliamentary inquiry that did a deep dive into the issues at Eskom, and a lot of that evidence was subsequently referred to the Zondo Commission. And we know what the Zondo Commission has found as per the state capture corruption that took place at Eskom. And we as the ACDP, we find it totally unacceptable that at a time when many of the major industrial clients of Eskom and companies are closed, that we should have up to stage 6 load shedding now during the festive season. And that is why we call for a renewed involvement of the private sector to increase the independent power producers program. And we are deeply disappointed at the delays that have been incurred in the rollout of these independent power producers programs, when, if you consider that it was announced in 2015 and the request for proposals went out in 2019 and was supposed to go out in 2019, we only saw it going out in 2021, and bid window 5 was only announced in September, where 3 of the 25 projects were accepted, and only now in December, literally 3 weeks ago, were a number of the others announced. That was 13 others of the total of 25 projects, which should have allowed for 25,000 additional megawatts, which should already have been on the grid. That should have been on the grid already. So it's totally unacceptable to have such delays with the rollout of the solar and the wind programs, and that is why we are calling for greater urgency in this renewable energy program, because as you've correctly indicated, South Africans are struggling, businesses are struggling, individuals are struggling to make ends meet with this ongoing load shedding, given that the demand is at very low at this stage. And what is interesting is this last week, I think it was this week where you mentioned 200 days of load shedding, the energy availability factor is at an all-time low of 50%.
Yeah.
Now, everyone's focusing on the Eskom's financials, which were only up to March this year. The situation has got far worse since that date, and we need urgent action, and from Parliament, we need far greater oversight to ensure that the renewable programs are rolled out much quicker. Far more can be done, because even those bid window 5 that have now been approved will take 18 to 24 months before they come online. And according to the initial program, they should have been online already. It's totally unacceptable.
I mean, Steve, what is the delay in getting these renewables online? Why does it seem like we just don't have the kind of urgency that our energy situation requires?
That's a very good question, and I think there are a number of issues. There could be an ideological issue. We've seen a lot of people are opposed to the private sector playing any role with Eskom generation. Of course, there are also issues relating to the grid. There's issues relating to NERSA, National Energy Regulator of South Africa, giving approval for these programs. But the President Ramaphosa himself announced in July the urgent actions. He increased the megawatt capacities that were permissible up to from 10 to 100 megawatts. There shouldn't be any limit on that. If you in the private sector are able to produce energy, we need it desperately. We need wind, we need solar, and yes, there were issues around whether the grid can take this additional capacity. But as I say, I've pointed out that the load shedding has been going on since way back, 15 years. And we know even Minister Gwede Mantashe himself He was on the board of Eskom when it was running very well. At that stage already, they requested additional power, and that is way back when Eskom was one of the best in the country. And I must lay it squarely, as I've said in Parliament, at the door of government for the horrendous state of affairs at Eskom.
Yeah.
In fact, Minister Gwed Mantashe, he should resign, and not Andre de Ruyter, who's done his very best under very, very difficult circumstances. And of course, they've indicated that in 2023, it's going to get even worse.
Yeah.
And we need to come together to find solutions. Yes, from our perspective as an opposition party, we are critical of the Eskom, of government, but we need to come together to find solutions. And the professors are all indicating the private sector should get involved. There's a far greater urgency. Bidwinder 6 was announced earlier. They need to expedite that process. Finalize Bidwinder 5, finalize Bidwinder 6 so that the private sector can bring in solar and wind. We need to look at also the other issues of water, hydropower as well, so that we can urgently resolve this energy crisis that is affecting everybody in South Africa, including yourselves, I'm sure.
I mean, there's a lot of analysis now, and I think the outgoing Eskom CEO has also said as much, that South Africa, given the state of Eskom, is on the verge of being a failed state. Is that overstating it, Steve?
Well, I think he's correctly given an indication of what could happen. The challenge is, of course, the unplanned outages, where you've got an aging fleet that has not been properly maintained. I saw a report recently that in the United States of America, they have got power units of 50 years old that are properly maintained according to the designer's specifications. They are still running well. There's no problem there. So our challenge is an aging fleet that has not been properly maintained, and it is unpredictable as to which units are going to go down. And then added to that, the issues of criminal syndicates at the power stations, the issues of coal, not proper coal. The situation could be, as indicated, a failed state where you have unplanned outages continuing. And I think government is aware of that, and that is why you're having an unprecedented issue of the army being deployed to power stations, to guard power stations with intelligence, with engineers, and to physically guard stations. So we need to be very mindful of this is a severe crisis. We need to all come on board, and we from Parliament need to exercise far better oversight as to what is going on at Eskom, so that we can ensure that we do not have a failed state and that we do not have a blackout. And yes, they indicate that you won't have a total blackout because they'll increase the levels up to stage 8, stage 10. But already we're having so many hours of outages. It's estimated by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, that last year, in this year alone, it's cost 1 trillion rand of lost production. And yes, well, that's an estimate. But the impact on our economy, on businesses, on our small businesses is irreparable, because many cannot afford generators, cannot afford to keep their power running, are losing food, are losing production, and something urgently needs to be done. So let's trust in the new year that we can come together and find solutions to this issue across the board. And a major issue of that is for the private sector to play a far greater role and a more urgent role, and for government to expedite the approvals, to allow expedited the Bidwinder 5 for that process. We need speedy construction. We can't wait 18 months for that construction. We need Bidwinder 6 to be finalized quickly. And if all the authorities involved, whether it is NERSA, they need to give their approval very quickly, because this is an urgent situation, and the South African public need to stand up and say, we don't accept this anymore. We want action, and we want it now.
Well, as you pray for better situation come 2023, Steve, all projections tell us that won't be the case, and that we will lose hundreds of billions more because of Eskom to our economy. In fact, that Eskom itself will face a deficit of hundreds of billion rand more.
Indeed. And so one doesn't only pray, but you also have action. And that's why we're very firm. That's why I played a key role in the Eskom inquiry as a lawyer, cross-examining board members, getting to the bottom. I'm a lawyer as well. That's where we need deep dives into what is going on exactly at Eskom, and what is the government telling us, and why are these issues of the private sector's involvement not being expedited quickly. Why have we had such unacceptable delays? Only now, as I indicated earlier, now the 9th of December, a few weeks ago, with the final bid window, 5 approvals granted, and not the total when it was estimated there should have been 25 projects. There's far less, with far less megawatt power. Should have been 25,000 megawatts. It's now only going to be 1,800 in 18 months' time. So we need urgent action. Obviously, we need to reduce our consumption, but at the same time, we need to find out why are our fleets breaking down so often. We need to bring back, as Eskom is already doing, the original manufacturers, those technicians that were involved in the original manufacturing, another role that the private sector can play so that they can oversee the maintenance. And we know it's the boilers that are bursting, and often due to coal that's not of correct standard. Why does the Eskom's private security now come on board? As soon as they come on board, they start catching the coal trucks. We saw that private sector coal truck, those drivers being caught. Why aren't the police doing their job? So myself, I also serve in the Justice Committee. I want to question the National Prosecuting Authority. We want to also look into that issue. We had recently a discussion around Optimum Mine, what was going on there, in the Justice Committee. So it's impacting us. I think it's good that we as Parliament cross-sectorally start looking into this because it impacts all of us. Even as Parliament, we have load shedding. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, ACDP MP Steve Swart, let me thank you for your time this morning. Certainly one of the big issues facing South Africa as we head into the new year especially, and the question of organised criminal syndicates as well, a big part of what's unfolding at Eskom. Steve, thanks very much indeed for your time.